welcome to Chase Your Star. I am your host, Monica Carter Tagore. Now is the time to go for something more than the tired, ordinary reality so many people settle for. Now is the time to chase your star and live your bigger, better, bolder life where you live and work according to the purpose, passion, and calling driving you. Each week, join me as I share information, inspiration, and insight to help you do more with your life and the work you do. We will cover life strategy, personal development, and entrepreneurship, all wrapped around the idea of your story. You see, sharing your story is an important part of chasing your star, as your story holds within it lessons, blessings, messages, and big ideas that help you do something great for yourself and do something great in the world. Ready to chase your star? Let's do it. Hello and welcome to this episode of Chase Your Star. I am Monica Carter Tagore, thrilled you're here, and I want to get right into the message I have for you today because I want this to be something that kind of soaks in for you. I want you to mull it over across the day and to just see how it hits you. I want to share this particular thought because it's something I know a lot of people struggle with, and it's this. I want you to know at this moment, at this point in time, that it is never too late to make your impact. It's never too late to make your difference. And I share this sentiment and this idea today because a lot of people struggle with that idea. They think that time has passed them by. They think their moment has come and gone. They think it's simply too late for them to do whatever it is they dream of doing, whatever it is they feel they were placed here to do, whatever it is they need to do. And so they sit in a place of regret and of disappointment and of frustration. They sit in a place where they think they have nothing left to give. They have nothing left to offer. They have nothing left to present. And I want to let you know that is simply wrong thinking. That is a false narrative you're sharing with yourself. You're telling yourself you are believing. Throw it out. And I want to help you throw it out because I want to prove to you in this story that I'm about to share that many of us across the nation already know. I want to prove to you it's never too late. And I want to prove that by sharing a piece of Bernie Sanders' story. The presidential primary campaign season is over. It felt at some points like it would never end, or at least it seemed to me. It seemed like it was going on and on and on for so long. But I think some beautiful inspiration came out of the primary season. And the inspiration I want to share with you is that, again, it's never too late to make your impact through your story. Look at Bernie Sanders. Whether you were someone who felt the burn and supported Bernie Sanders, or whether you were someone who supported another candidate, we can all appreciate what happened as a result of the Bernie Sanders story. Bernie Sanders is 74 years old. He's 74 years old, and he was working harder than maybe he's worked in his life, or harder than a lot of us have ever worked in our lives for something he believed in. In fact, he was gearing up when a lot of people are starting to take it down a notch, because at 74, many people are retired. They're coasting. They're taking it easy. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all enjoy the idea of being able to take it easy at some point in life. But the point I want to make here is that Bernie Sanders was rocking the hard work. He was just really pushing forward because he had a vision, he had a goal, he had a dream, he had something he was working toward, something he was working for, and that was change. And while he did not win the Democratic nomination, I believe he won in another place. He won in the place of impact. You see, Bernie Sanders, as I said, he's 74 years old. Turns 75 this year if he's blessed to see his birthday. 74 years old and still working to make his difference. He went from being a little known guy whom many even consider to be at the fringe of of politics and at the fringe of everything he was working toward, to being a national, no, scratch that, international figure over this past year. Even people overseas, some of them even felt the burn. I saw in news stories and on social media. So Bernie Sanders went from, as I said, being this little known guy from Vermont who was doing his thing to being an international figure. And while we saw him rise like that over a course of a year, this man was working over a course of a lifetime. He'd been working all of his career. He marched with luminaries in the civil rights movement. He was a mayor of his town. Of course, he was a member of Congress. He passed lots of bills, but he wasn't very known outside of his immediate area. He didn't really have that stature. He didn't really have that kind of presence. Now, though, now he is known. And his impact grows. He has inspired and he's excited millions with his message. He's inspired and excited the disenfranchised, the disillusioned, the discouraged. He gave them hope. And he gave them ideas. We saw that he has inspired so many people all across this country, and as I said, even the world. He's inspired young people, and he's inspired to a lesser extent possibly some older people, but the media certainly focused on young people, even though I believe he inspired some older people as well. My point here is that this 74-year-old man did not take his age as a deterrent. He did not take his age as something to cause him to say, well, you know what? I missed the boat. My time has passed. The best for me is behind. No, he didn't take his age as a sign of that. He took his age meaning that, well, as long as I have breath in my body and as long as I have something to share, I will share it. And so his age became not a deterrent, but the thing to push him forward. He took the wisdom he's gained as a result of the years he's learned and packaged that into his platform, packaged that into the message he wanted to share with people so that he could inspire them and to give them ideas. And even though he did not win the Democratic nomination for president, his impact has been felt, and I believe it will continue to be felt in time to come. We will see how all of that shakes out, of course, as the Democrats have their convention and some other things happen, and even as the election season goes forward. But he's already had one impact that I saw in a news story. He's inspired and excited so many people that thousands have decided to run for local political office. Thousands of people have been so inspired by his message of change, of this revolution, that they have decided to take up the mantle. They have decided to throw their hats into the ring, as it were, and to learn more about the process and possibly to run for, as I said, local political office, so they can start making change at their level, so they can start making change at the grassroots level. And as we know, change starts at the bottom, at that grassroots level. So who knows what kinds of policies, what kind of provisions, what kind of even laws will be implemented because these people decided to enter the political arena. We could see lasting change come as a result of that, change that affects us for years and years and decades and generations to come. And if that is Bernie Sanders' legacy, that's a powerful legacy. That is lasting change. That is the impact of a man and his story. You are never too old. As long as you still breathe, as long as you are still alive, there is work for you to do. Your story matters. You matter. I share that with you each time I'm in this podcast. Your story matters. You matter. How are you going to create impact through your story? You are here for a reason, and as long as you are breathing, then that reason has not been fulfilled. That purpose has not been met. So there is still work for you to do. Look, I know it's easy to get discouraged or bummed out or think this is a young person's game. that life is a young person's game, that impact is a young person's game, that making the difference you want to make is a young person's game. You think all of that should happen early in life, and by a certain age you should be kicking back and you should be enjoying the fruits of that labor, or you should be a lot further along in your life than whatever you are now. I get that. I understand those feelings of frustration or disappointment or regret. It can happen. But I don't want you to embrace those thoughts. Let them pass through. Let them pass through your consciousness, because those are not the thoughts to embrace. The thought I want you to embrace, again, is the one I shared at the top of this podcast, and that is you are never too old, and it is never too late to make an impact through your story. So don't get confused. Don't start thinking and dwelling on some mistaken idea that this is a young person's game, that you've missed the boat, that your best days are behind you. All of that nonsense is simply not true. But it can feel true, especially when you are reading stories about 20-somethings who are taking over the world, who are running multi-million-dollar businesses or having billion-dollar startups. Oh my goodness. It can be easy to think that, oh, these young people have really got it together and I'm just a slacker. It's not about you being a slacker. You see, their success is not a reflection on your potential. And let me just ask you this question. Is it possible? Is it possible that your best work is ahead of you? Is it possible that all you have learned to this point, that all you have experienced to this point, that all you have endured to this point was preparing you to make the great impact life has created you to make? Is it possible that all you have been through has brought you to this point? So rather thinking that this is just an end point, or this is just a point of looking at the end of possibility for you, or that your potential is behind you, is it possible that this is just the beginning for you? That everything you went through before brought you here? It's not a time to give up or to feel down about what you haven't done, but it's a time to get excited about what you are yet to do. That's what is going on now. It's time for you to be excited about your future. It's time for you to be excited about your potential. It's time for you to be excited about your impact. Look at Sanders. Look at Bernie Sanders. It took him 40 years to get here. This man has been working on change for 40 years. This man has been rolling up his sleeves and doing the needful, making the decisions he thought were necessary, taking the actions he believed would move him forward for 40 years. And it's only just now, after such a long period of time, that he has gained the stature, gained the influence, that he's able to make this type of impact. We have seen him rise almost meteorically over the course of a year. But what went into that year were 40 years of work. What about you? The years leading up to where you are now have gone into creating you as the person you are today, have gone into educating you in the knowledge you have today, have gone into creating the sensibilities, the perspective, the ideas you have today. So are you in your 30s and 40s and you're feeling regret over what you haven't done yet? Is that who you are? Are you in your 50s or 60s and feeling as if the best is behind you? Is that who you are? Are you in your 70s or 80s and feeling as if, well, you've let life pass you by and there's nothing else you have to offer? Is that who you are? I challenge you. And I say no, that's not who you are. That might be what you were thinking for a period of time, and maybe even what you were thinking coming into listening to this podcast. Those may be sentiments you were entertaining, but that's not who you are. You are much more than the limiting thoughts and beliefs you allow to entertain you. You're allowed to come into your consciousness. You are someone who was created, who was designed, who was placed here for a purpose. You are someone who was made for impact. What kind of impact can you make as a result of your story? What kind of impact can you make on the world around you and maybe even on the world at large? What has your story prepared you to do? What has your story taught you to do? What has your story informed you to do? Focus on that and not on the fact that maybe time has passed by. Not on the fact that you think you're too old. Not on the fact that you think it's too late. No, focus on what life has brought you here to do, on what you are prepared to do right now. And start working on that. Start working on making the impact you're here to make. Whose life do you need to touch as a result of the journey you have traveled, as the result of the story you have lived, as a result of the path you have taken? What wisdom, what knowledge, what perspective, what message, what lesson, what blessings do you need to share? Just like Bernie Sanders, you can find that your best is yet to come. And I believe indeed your best is yet to come. If you're not dead and you're not going into a decline, your best is yet to come. Even if you feel you're not doing much right now, even if you feel a bit confused about where you are to go forward, just think about it. Think about your story and think about the truth of that story. What has that story taught you? And how can you help someone else with that knowledge? So my challenge for you today as you go forward is twofold. One, to shake off the idea that life has passed you by and that you're too old. And two, to think about your story from the vantage point of what have I learned that can help someone else? Figure out what that thing is and go and share it. Go help the people who can benefit from the life you've lived and the story you have to share. It's never too late. That's why you're here. You are here to make an impact through your story. Some of us learn it early and we get to working and we have great and wonderful and massive results early. Some learn it later and they work and they finally get to the point where they're making massive results. Many never learn it at all. Never learn at all that they're here for a reason and they're here to make an impact. I want you to learn it. Whether you learn it early or whether you feel that you're learning it later, just learn it. Learn the fact that you are here for a reason. Learn that you are here for a purpose. Learn that you are here to make an impact, and you truly can make an impact when you figure out what part of your story can help someone else. So again, I challenge you. Get away from that negative thought that life has passed you by and that it's too late. And look at your story and see what you have learned and how someone else could benefit from what you know. And go and start working on that. Go and start working on helping someone else based on what you have learned in your life. And you too can make a massive impact. You too can touch lives. You too can make the difference you were placed here to make. I completely believe that. And there you have it. This week's information, inspiration, and insight to help you live a bigger, better, bolder life doing what you feel purpose, passion, and called to do. If you enjoyed this episode, please go to iTunes and subscribe. And while you're there, please leave a review. I'd really appreciate it. And one other thing, if you would like to get on the inside track and be a part of my inner community, then please go visit my website at monicacartertagore.com/star-newsletter. Join the newsletter so that you can get all of my free resources, news, and updates first, immediately before others get it. I'd love to have you in my community. So visit the website, monicacartertagore.com/star-newsletter.